Hello everybody, so today is September the 23rd, which means it is also Bisexual Visibility Day. As a bisexual person myself, this day I think is quite significant for me, so I thought in the name of being visible I would film a wee chat about some of the books which helped me the most. The first two books I don't actually have with me because I borrowed them from either the library or other people, so I'm just gonna talk without actually holding a book, which feels really weird. First book is Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson, which I think is probably quite an obvious choice. Like, I would really say that is like at the forefront of queer literature, so it's not really a surprise that it's number one on my list. I read this back in March, and while I had read Sexing the Cherry last year, I didn't actually enjoy it very much. I found it a bit confusing, hard to follow. I didn't really like the writing style in it. Oranges definitely won me back onto Jeanette Winterson's side, and I'm so excited to read some of her other work. The one thing that I really liked about this book is that it just sort of gave me this really strong sense of well-being and feeling safe. Like, it was quite a quick and easy read. And despite some of the tough themes of how, like, Jeanette's family, these crazy evangelical Christians, I found it quite comforting in a lot of ways, and it really affected me on a profound level. I particularly liked the whole theme of evangelicalism in 1960s Northern England, because I think a lot of the time when evangelicalism is portrayed in literature, it's in a contemporary American setting, so to actually see it put in a context that is slightly closer to home. I liked getting to know her family and getting to understand why they were reacting the ways that they did. Even if I didn't necessarily agree, I found that her whole family was full of really well-developed characters. I also particularly liked those short segments that were like breaks in the text, where it was just like 1 or 2 pages and it would be like Jeanette's inner thoughts, and they were quite often fairy tale inspired, so I thought that was a really nice twist, and it wasn't necessarily something that I knew about before I started to read the book. So as a fairy tale lover, it was quite a pleasant surprise for me. A few weeks later I read Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which again is right on the top of the list of queer literature. I actually borrowed this from a girl that I was seeing at the time who hadn't read it herself, but she was like, "You like books, go and read this." Stuck into it and I really loved it. The first few chapters were maybe a bit on the slow side, but once it picked up, I was like so emotionally invested in these characters. Like, I couldn't wait to see where Nan was going next in her journey. It just really felt like I was really involved. I don't normally like historical fiction, or at least I had it in my head that I don't like historical fiction. So I think this made a nice change. So if anyone has any recommendations of historical fiction that's in the same vein as Sarah Waters, then I will gladly listen to you. I would also recommend, if you have read Tipping the Velvet, BBC adaptation is really good. I think it sticks quite closely to the book and it's just really well done, it's really nicely filmed. I love the score as well, like I sometimes just listen to the music from it. The one thing I would say is that they simplified the ending quite a lot because obviously, you know, screen time, they had to cut it a bit short and change things a bit so that it fitted within their hourly slot. I think while the TV ending still works well, I much prefer the book ending overall. So yes, if you haven't seen the BBC adaptation, go and hunt it down because it is actually really good. The next book is one that is very close to my heart. The author is very close to my heart, and that is The Rental Heart by Christie Logan. And I now have all of Christie's books. Sarah Waters is sandwiched between her books here. It's the first book of hers that I read because it was the only one she'd released at the time. I genuinely did not know that this was going to have queer themes. I picked it up on a complete whim, not knowing anything about it, not knowing anything about Christie. So it was a really pleasant surprise when I discovered that it was actually exactly the book that I had been looking for all this time. I read The Rental Heart when I was at home for the Easter break, and it was the same weekend that I'd actually come out to my parents. This was a real source of comfort to me. I can't even begin to explain, because especially because Christie plays with gender so much and different sexualities, and it's not really clear, and it made me feel, basically it was a massive comfort. I really enjoyed it, not only on a literary level but also because I feel like in a way it kind of saved me, and it made me feel so much better about myself and much more confident in the identity that I was now ready to take up. So Christie will forever have a place in my heart for that. Like, I will be forever in her debt. I've met her a couple of times now and she's an absolutely lovely person. The first time I met her was actually the day that I broke up with the girl that I was seeing at the time, and she was just an absolute sweetheart to me. And yeah, I don't know how to thank her any more than I have already. The first story in this collection is actually the title story, The Rental Heart, and from the outset you get this impression that the protagonist is bi. The day after I met Grace, her pierced little mouth, her shit-kicker boots, her hands as small as goosebumps writing numbers on my palm. The day after I met her, I went to the Heart rental place. And then the next section talks about she first rented a heart for this guy called Jacob, then the next one is Anna, the next one is Will, so it's really just alternating like male and female. That's if they are indeed male and female, because Kirsty is amazing at twisting gender. So it was really helpful to read about these characters who were attracted to multiple genders, just as I was coming to terms with that myself. The last one that I've read recently is Blue is the Warmest Colour by Julie Marot. I read this in a day last month, just picked it up as a wee treat for myself, and then I just sat down and read it in the space of about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And while I really enjoyed it, I kind of wish that I had spaced it out a bit more, because it is very poignant, and I think I would have become more attached to the characters and it would have been harder hitting had I sort of read it over a few days rather than a few hours. I could recognise that it was sad. I wasn't as emotional as I kind of thought I would be with all the build-up. I really like the art style in this. I'm just getting into graphic novels, so again, if anyone has any recommendations then go for it. But yeah, it's got this really nice art style. It's mainly black and white, but there are like flashes of blue to be used for her hair colour. It's got present day sections as well, which are in colour, but the majority of it is flashbacks, which is black, white and blue. So yeah, it's absolutely beautiful, and even like just the font that they've used is really nice. Like, it looks handwritten. It's just a really beautiful book. Okay, I haven't actually seen the film, but I've heard it is quite different from the book, so I will watch it at some point, but I think I will need to go into it with an open mind, knowing that it is going to be drastically different. I've read the ending is happier in the film, but I could be wrong. Lastly is a book that I haven't actually read yet, but it's on my TBR and it's very high up on there, so it will probably be getting read soon. And that is this anthology that I picked up a few weeks ago called Out There, and it is basically an anthology of poetry, prose, non-fiction articles by young LGBT Scottish writers. And it's got some amazing talent in here. Like it says on the front, with contributions from Damien Barr, Carol Ann Duffy, Jenny Fagan, Ronald Frame, Kerry Hudson, Jackie Kay, Val McDermid, Ali Smith, Louise Welsh and many others, including Presley Logan. So I'm really excited to read this, and I think it's going to have a lot of variety in it, and I'm always excited to read more Scottish authors. Scottish, LGBT, this book is made for me basically. If you know any good fiction with bisexual characters, let me know, because there is so much bi erasure and it makes me really angry. I've really struggled to think of books with bisexual protagonists that I could have mentioned in this video, and I realised I've read basically none. So that is your job. You will recommend me books with bi protagonists. Anyway, until next time, bye!